aspect I choose, when showing just that they lose when they step in the game. Everyone knows my name, Doctor Strange, who Spider-Ham, maybe, and Black Widow, on a secret mission to stop the villain. Dance of Death is the main event, unless I'm Rocket Raccoon, no time to be rude. Oh wait, I'm a superhero, always willing to go to blow with crimes to save so many lives. A stud is do or die. Marvel champions, you a champion. I'm champion, we are champions. I'm a superhero, always willing to go to blow with crimes to save so many lives. A stud is do or die. Marvel champions, you a champion. I'm champion, we are champions. They say it's a little bit slow, but I'm all about control. When I stun and confused, cause there's no way I would lose. I flip up and down, villain stand you round till I'm ready or not. This combo ready to drop 20, 30 damages and cannon hawk smash. I'm a bash, put him in the trash and call it a match. Let's step up in the portal or get up in game. Dead Winnie the Nelson, so keep it locked and watching. I'm a superhero, always willing to go to blow with crimes to save so many lives. A stud is do or die. Marvel champions, you a champion. I'm champion, we are champions. I'm a superhero, always willing to go to blow with crimes to save so many lives. A stud is do or die. Marvel champions, you a champion. I'm champion, we are champions. They call me Desperate Gaming, he's an animal. Watch him play, expert 2, standard 2, clowning you. Villains with every aspect I choose, when showing just that they lose when they step in the game. Everyone knows my name, Doctor Strange, who Spider-Ham, maybe, and Black Widow, on a secret mission to stop the villain. Dance of Death is the main event, unless I'm Rocket Raccoon, no time to be rude. Oh wait, I'm a superhero, always willing to go to blow with crimes to save so many lives. A stud is do or die. Marvel champions, you a champion. I'm champion, we are champions. I'm a superhero, always willing to go to blow with crimes to save so many.
Welcome to Descry Gaming. I'm Descry. I'm here to bring a response video. I haven't done one of these in a long time. And who better not to do a response video of a response video of a response video. So we got D20 calling out for responses. You got a new content creator called Web Warrior Fanatic giving his response video out. And then Descry doing a very awkward response video of response video. But what's cool about this is I get to respond not only to D20, but also Web Warrior. And I think I'm going to have some similarities between both of them. I think I will agree a little bit with D20 on certain things, and then maybe Web Warrior. And then at the end of the day, I'll have a little bit of my opinion on the matter. But I think this is a really cool discussion, power creep, because I think when you get really into Marvel Champions, I think that is a really interesting topic is, does the game have power creep? If it does, are we seeing it just more on the new heroes and not the old heroes anymore? So these are kind of things that come up in this discussion. And what's cool about it is you have, D20, who's kind of like a very broad player. He plays the game quite a lot, does a lot of solo play. I wouldn't consider him like super hardcore Marvel Champions player as far as like difficulty goes, but he's probably more closer to the average person that actually plays the game, where someone like Web Warrior Fanatic is more how do I put it, plays more on the harder difficulties. So what I'm trying to get is you have different lenses put in front of this discussion, right? So you have more of an average casual. I don't consider D20 like casual, but like I think far as if you're talking about power creep, I think he's more to what an average Marvel Champion player might feel. And then you have WebWarrior Fanatic, probably more into my end, which is more into like min-maxing and really diving deep into the stats and like the difficulties and kind of that approach. So it'll be interesting. So I'm actually going to play Web Warrior's video since he's on it, D20's on it, and I'm just going to kind of like pause and intertake between different interesting things that come up. Web Warrior sort of spud up his video for D20, so I think I'll just like probably leave it at the normal speed. And here we go. So
what is up, guys? I'm your friendly Web Warrior Fanatic, and D20 just made this video called "Are Older Heroes Becoming Obsolete?" And
so
this is actually a topic that I'm super passionate about.
Oh gosh, my spacebar's not working.
Talk to me on the...
Yeah, that sucks. I can't. Usually I hit the spacebar and it pauses. I just want to say one thing. So yeah, to understand, in layman terms, what we're talking about is, you have the original release heroes in the game, and it seems to be that D20 is like, they're pretty simple compared to like Cable and these newer heroes that are coming out. Yeah, it's all good, Josh. Okay, I'm closing. Yeah, close my door, please. Okay. So to get back to what I'm trying to talk about is if you look at the core heroes like Spider-Man, OG, Peter Parker, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Iron Man, there's definitely a clear difference from maybe the how do I put this? The simplicity of how those heroes play is a lot more broad, and you compared to someone like Drax or someone like Star-Lord, and like as like these more heroes that come out later in the life cycle of the game, it almost seems like the person who made this hero wants you to sort of play a certain way. But the thing I would say is that at its core, I think the way you play Marvel Champions, the fundamentals still don't change really. But yes, obviously when you're playing Drax, your mindset is like to get these rage counters up and then to work around that system of getting the rage counters working for you. So where you could say is with the original heroes don't really have that complexity. But let's get into, I'm giving you an example of sort of what they're kind of talking about. But I guess the $1 million question of this sort of feedback response is, are they obsolete? Are the older core heroes obsolete? So we'll figure that out as we
Reddit or
play.
Discord. You guys know that it's my opinion that Marvel Champions has no power creep. And I've made shorts about it before of why I think that the core set heroes stand the test of time. So D20 made this awesome video, and basically he just asked me.
So that's right there. So his belief, Web Warrior's belief, is that the core heroes aren't obsolete, and that he believes pretty strongly that they're holding just fine and they're not even close to obsolete, basically, if I'm paraphrasing kind of what he's saying. So that's interesting. So we have him on that spectrum. I think D20 is on the other spectrum of he believes that they are sort of, or they feel like it. And let's continue to watch.
Open-ended question to the community, what we think, if we think that Marvel Champions does have power creep, and basically what that kind of means for the game. So I definitely recommend you guys check out his video if you haven't already, but you probably have. So this will just be my response to it and me giving my opinion. I've already watched it, but I really want to give my take on it. So I did put the video at 1.5 speed, and I'll just be skipping and pausing on parts I want to comment on. So let's go ahead and get started.
This video is an open-ended question. I don't have an answer for it. I don't have a solution for it. It's just an observation. And I don't know if it's a good one or a bad one. But basically, are older heroes becoming obsolete? Maybe. This all kind of came about because I was talking in the Discord, which is not part of, join down below, there's a link there. But I was talking in the Discord, and somebody was talking about how, Snowwolf, I think it was you. I was talking about how they recently got Quicksilver for the first time. They're playing it, and they just kind of felt meh about Quicksilver. Nothing great. And Quicksilver's whole thing when he first came out was the whole, after you use one of his basic powers, you ready him up. And what's kind of cool with him is that you basically do a bunch of always be runnings, and you have to build him out and then use always be runnings, right? So, can these go back? Yeah, okay.
So I'm going to just pause right there because I really like Quicksilver, because I think Quicksilver really shines the light of how powerful a ready character type is, and how it can scale so powerfully in the game. And I would also say, like, if you want to look at thwarting and damage, especially damage, because that seems to be the sexy kind of thing out there, is like, which hero can do the most damage. Because Quicksilver can set up and power up and then just do huge amount of readies, he is sort of catapulted himself to S tier damage dealer, in my opinion. But let's hear what D20 is going to say. But I'm just saying it's I like that at this point in time, before releasing Quicksilver, we had not seen like a really mega ready type hero. You had heroes like OG Iron Man, that his reactor suit would kind of give him a ready every round. But we've never really seen someone that their whole mechanical nature of sort of playing them, they get a ton of readies to a point where when they ready, they can generate resources. So that was sort of Quicksilver's thing, but we'll keep hearing what they have to say.
For example, if you get, friction resistance was also a really good card too, but you get hyper perception, which gives him +1 thwart. You do the see now thing, which is +1 attack, right? I think there's one that gives him +1 defense too. Yeah, accelerate reflexes. And then he's like a 2/2/2 hero and does all the stuff. And then, if you add it on top of maximum velocity, like it's a really cool thing and whatever, but there is like this build out thing you gotta do. And he was kind of like, yeah, it's fine, but like it's just like a lot of work, versus X23, half the work is done, right? X23 maybe doesn't get the 2/2/2 stat line. She's only a 2/1.
Yeah, so he's doing a comparison with X23, which is, I think, at this time of this recording, the newest hero that's been released. I still think they play quite differently. And even though I haven't spent hardly any time with X23, Quicksilver and her, yes, there's some, obviously the readying is represented in both of them, but I think they're two different beasts. Like, I think they go into Iron Man and Ironheart. I think that's a good example of like they both want to build a suit, but they both have different ways to get there, right? And it feels different. I think X23 also, the way she does her readying is through Honey Badger. Again, that's much different than the way Quicksilver readies. And I think Quicksilver is more fundamental, and he's still, I think, a better readying character than X23, in my opinion. But they do feel different though when you play them. But let's just, at least in my point of view,
use that line, but she's still bonkers when she works with her claws, and that she can ready up when she takes damage.
Okay, so I think that X23 and Quicksilver, they are similar because they both have that readying mechanic, but yeah, I think they're a little bit different as well. So I think D20 hit it right on the head when he says that X23 doesn't need that startup time that Quicksilver needs to kind of set up his board, right? I'm not going to say who I think is stronger or weaker, but I think that definitely if you're just starting out in the scenario, X23 doesn't need that. She just ramps right up.
Yeah, so I agree there. X23 is definitely more like Spectrum, who right off the gates can get things done and is quite powerful. I probably think Quicksilver scales higher in if we're talking about setup heroes. Not to say X23 is not a sleaze when it comes to setup. When she's set up, she can do amazing things in huge numbers. But I think Quicksilver just has more like just sheer like power in his identity toolkit when set up. But he is definitely a more wimpier hero in the beginning of the game, 100%. But you could look at that as more of a balance thing, probably. It's kind of like, I mean, if they made Iron Man super strong right off the gate, that would, he'd be better than Doctor Strange in a sense, right? Because, like, here's the thing is when Iron Man is fully set up and he's deck built properly within his deck, is he not better than Doctor Strange at that point, right? I would argue fully set up Iron Man with a deck with lots of powers in his deck is a better hero at that point than Doctor Strange. So that's a hot take.
She can just swing for a lot or thwart for a lot immediately. But I do think that Quicksilver has the higher potential, which balances it.
All right, so he kind of agrees. He's kind of saying what I'm saying, basically.
I think that whenever you're fully built out your board, the damage that he can do in one turn is still one of the highest, if not the highest, in the game. So I think the reason why his potential is so much higher is
yeah, and if some people are kind of like, are you sure about that? What do you mean the highest? Now we have ways to laser sword Quicksilver. You've got in protection, you have the one that can ready and destroy a tech upgrade to get those stats. So you can really amplify him. And like, to give you an example, I was just playing around and I was able to quite easily get like up to 10 attack. And then when you combine that with, you could put down tenacities that stay on the playmat. And when you use his attack, his friction resistant upgrade that will generate a resource. And then when you ready, it will ready up again. So you basically, if you had like 3 tenacities down, you basically have 3 readies. And then if your attack stat is like close to 10, that's 30 damage. And you still have your hand to play. So, you could easily, if you kind of set yourself up quite well, you could get close to maybe, 8 to 10 attacks if the stars line up, which could be doing 100 damage, right, in one turn. So obviously, yes, there's a lot of setup to get that, but it's not impossible. And if you play in a player-counted group, and especially if you have heroes like Doctor Strange that could throw a magical enchantment on your hero, that boosts his attack +1. If you have a leadership person on the team, they can Mighty of Avengers Assemble, he gets +1. So there's like ways that you can kind of in a player kind of group just Voltron a hero, which is Quicksilver,
because he has so many copies of that always be running, and he has the resource and the economy to pay for it. So I think that that's a good comparison to make, but it's still a little bit more nuanced than just saying that X-23 is stronger, because it kind of depends on the scenario. Most of the time she'll feel stronger, right? If you're facing Rhino or...
Yeah, so this is where I think the difficulty of when us content creators and the community talk about the game, when we talk about power and fill in the blank, it's hard in a game of Marvel Champions because you could play the game as a rush down type of game, which breaks the rules of the traditional way of control the villain, set up, build your board, and then go for the kill. Rush down is like you're basically taking your stats of your hero and how good their identity kit is right off the gate and just going full throttle at the villain. So that type of measure is way different than, I'm going to build up, control the villain, and then kill the villain. But I like the fact that we have these different ways to play the game. I don't think one or the other is a bad way to play the game. Like, I know sometimes people kind of criticize the rush down play, like, it doesn't feel like Marvel Champions if you beat the villain in 2 or 3 turns. I think it's kind of exciting and fun, and it's a different way to play the game. A win's a win. I would just say that. Like, so I wouldn't take anything away from someone beating a hard villain and winning in 3 turns. It still takes a lot of skill and deck building to be able to win consistently on those difficulty settings. So I would just say that. But what I'm trying to say is I think that's the confusion part. I think when we start talking about power and such, is that there's different ways you play the game, and especially in multiplayer, it's very dynamic what power really looks like. But I just want to throw that out there, like my 2 cents about it. I know the topic is about heroes becoming obsolete, and we're definitely gonna segue into that pretty shortly here.
Or Claw or Ultron, I think that X-23 is stronger. But if you're facing someone like Magneto or Ronin, I think that the question or their strength becomes a little bit closer, because against these tougher villains, you need to set up your board. It's a little bit more difficult to rush them down. Well, maybe not Ronin. I think that X-23 can probably rush down Ronin. But I do think that against the higher difficulty villains, you would have to plan out your board a little bit longer, and that might be where Quicksilver can shine a little bit more. So I don't think that he's been...
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm actually really happy you mentioned that. So say if you play Loki on Expert, you have to kill 3 Lokis. 1 Loki, if there's a side scheme out, you can't even do damage to him. And there's Stalwart Lokis. So obviously you can't really 2-turn kill Expert Loki, although I don't know, I haven't tried it. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be a pretty hard task to do that. But going a little bit further, that is a really good point that he made, that in those situations, right, then it would cater more for heroes with better setups, right? Since the game has to go longer, so that would up, I guess, the power levels of those setup characters like Iron Man, Quicksilver, heroes that need a little more setup, but once they're set up, they could do amazing things.
Absolutely power crept by X-23.
Whereas X-23 doesn't need that amount of setup. She's kind of pretty explosive off the gates, kind of like Spectrum is I think Spectrum is like the power poster child of like just ready to go off the gate, kind of, so to speak.
Definitely see why a lot of people in the community would feel that way, because for a lot of scenarios, I think that X-23 is the easier option to play and easier option to pick. Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit here till we get to Spider-Man.
OG Spider-Man.
I feel the same exact thing when we talk about Spider-Man. For those that know, love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is one of my favorite heroes in this game, but in the...
Yes, D20's favorite Marvel comic book character, I believe, is Spider-Man. So he is a man of culture, a man of taste. Anyone that loves Spider-Man is someone that has a lot of good taste.
Core set he's kind of lacking, because the only way you're really removing threat is through Spider Tracer, right? Like, he thwarts for 1, which is nothing, whatever, but Spider Tracer is the way you're doing it. They have done, since that, 2 different heroes that I think are better versions of Spider-Man. And one of them is Miles Morales. Miles Morales just has a better stat line with 222 threat removal, right? Stunning, confusing things is always strong, really good. But the other thing, too...
So he's making a pretty strong claim here. He's saying that Miles Morales is kind of like miles ahead. He's a much better character. I would disagree. I think Miles Morales is a great character, but like it's like comparing an apple and an orange. OG Spider-Man Peter Parker, yes, fairly simple character design for the core days, but he still, in my opinion, holds up quite well. The ability to draw a card every time the villain initiates an attack on you, the fact that you have a 3 defense and you have like cancels, you have backflips. He's a very good kind of defense type hero, and very good in multiplayer for like keeping your allies alive with your cancellations, and then the webbed up can slow the villain's tempo from attacks. So he yes, you can say Miles can stun and confuse also. I don't get your point, Descry. Well, webbed up does a little bit more. It stops an attack activation, and then you get a stun. So it's a little bit more than just a stun or confuse. But they're both good heroes. But like I said, Spider-Man, a lot of his identity kit and the way he likes to be attacked, likes to be tested, that's not really like Miles. Miles wants to tactically use his toughs and confuses on the villains and stuns. He wants to kind of slip out of sight a little bit. He doesn't have cancels, so he's not going to be able to save you from a bad treachery. So I think they play differently, but they both play very nicely in their own way. I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, Miles is way ahead of Spider-Man. No way. Another thing too is like a lot of the villains and the modulars now in most of the sets are pretty diverse. They have steady. They have ways of piercing your tough off. So or doing things to, if you're trying to go that strategy. So I understand there's some villains, some of the early villains, yes, Stunning Confuse is quite strong. But I think, especially with the newer content coming down the line, I don't think that matters as much because from the latest content, they're really trying to mix it up and keep us on our toes. But short answer is I don't agree with D20 here on this, but let's just hear him out.
Is if we remember what he does. Okay, swing in. For example, remove 4 threat from a scheme. If you used a mental resource, you get to Spider Camouflage, which...
So like I see where he's going with it is like, look, Miles Morales is a way better. He can remove Thor a lot better, and that's a key thing in Marvel Champions. But he's neglecting that OG Spider-Man has 3 armor, can cancel spells. I prefer canceling than just being a better thwarter. I think in a very hard modular game with bad treacheries, I'd rather have the cancel than to move threat to remove threat easier. I understand Web Tracer is probably one of his weaker threat cards, and it's kind of clunky because you have to have a minion out, but let's keep hearing what he has to say.
I have it on the wrong thing. Spider Camouflage is when you would give Spider-Man tough stats and you would confuse an enemy, right? So like 2 for 4 threat removal is amazing, but if you use the right resource, is your tough stats at the very least, and you're going against your stalwart villains. 2 for 4 is already better than normal Spider-Man, right? Web Shot doesn't do as much damage, except you could do the Venom Blast ability. You use the energy resource, which does another 2 damage and stuns the enemy. So at least then it's a 2 for 6 damage, right? Which is close to 3 for 8. I mean, that's pretty on par with things, and it has the possibility of stunning somebody. So then they have like his other upgrade stuff, his defense mechanism. So you can basically, after you use a basic power, you can use his Spider Camouflage ability and his Web Warrior stuff, Web Shooter stuff still.
Yeah, they're very similar
so
heroes in
Miles
certain
Morales and
regards.
Peter Parker, man, okay. I personally don't think that Miles Morales is a stronger hero than Peter Parker. The 222 stat line that he was talking about, let me go back to the Miles Morales card here. So definitely I do agree that this is a better stat line than Peter Parker's stat line. I think 2 Thor is more valuable than having 1 Thor and Peter Parker's 3 defense. That being said, Miles is a hero where you want to use his basic activation a lot, right? You want him to thwart or attack, and you want to ready him up. With defense mechanism, where it's based on the activation, or it's after you make a basic activation, you can trigger that card, and it's the one that's stunned as well, the power within, right? For Peter Parker Spider-Man, it doesn't matter if you activate with him or not. I played so many games with Peter where I'm just exhausted the entire game because I have like an attachment that keeps me exhausted, and then my allies, supports, and upgrades are the things and ones that are doing.
Also, you got Aunt May that can kind of heal you up to full. Like, she's a really good healer.
So I do think that Miles is a little bit more tied to having that 2 Thor.
So I just want to say, like, when you're playing OG Spider-Man, what's really cool about him is, especially when you throw out an endurance or even get a specialized, the one that gives you more hits, and every time you take a damage, you draw a card. Very good on Spider-Man too. It's so like he can heal up to full basically every time he flips the altar. Aunt May heals for a ridiculous amount. So he becomes a really good actually like tank / I can backflip if there's a crazy number or just take it. I can cancel a really bad treachery. So again, Miles can't do that. So I think that's why I'm just trying to say to D20, they're kind of like apples and oranges. They both are great at doing certain things. And again, I think it has to do with D20 sees the game through solo play like a lot. Like, I think if he played a little bit more multiplayer, he might see some other benefits of, certain things in different heroes toolkit. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I think he sees the game too much in, when I play solo, I got to do everything, a jack of all trades, which is understandable. And I guess that way this way you might be like, Miles is so much better because his stats are better. He has better threat removal, yada, yada, yada. But I don't, there's so many things going on in Marvel Champions. You can't just, die on that little hill right there. I think there's more to Marvel Champions than just that. But
into attack than Peter. And they're very, very balanced in a way where I think Miles is very similar to the Quicksilver and X-23 comparison is Miles Morales and Peter Parker. A lot of the newer heroes like Miles Morales, he's a lot stronger against easier villains. So I think if you're facing Rhino, Claw, Ultron's not easy.
Get good, D20. Play the harder villains.
But like, if you're facing those three, I think Miles for sure has a way easier time with those guys than Peter Parker does. But in my experience, at least, against Ronin, against Venom Goblin, and against Magneto, I think that Peter Parker has a way easier time because he has that economy with Scientist in his alter ego form.
Yeah,
he has his,
that's a really good
Spider
alter
Sense in
ego
his,
ability.
Hero form to get that economy to really build out and set up his board where he can have the supports and upgrades and allies to do everything for him and doesn't need his basic activation as much as Miles. So I think they're both super duper strong heroes. And you guys know my bias, but I do think that Peter edges it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, having that one of the best defenses in the defensive kit, one of the best defensive kits in the game is what I mean to say. Just gives him so much versatility, especially added up with his economy to be able to just set up whatever board that you want and then completely dominate a scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say to you guys, I think Peter's better or Miles is better. I think they're both great. And my point is that they both do certain things very well. And if you can tap into that as a player of the game, I think that's where the fun and I think that's the exciting part, right? Like for me, when I play any hero, I get very excited once I kind of figure out a really cool combo or something that other heroes in that nature can't really do. But this hero that I'm playing, oh wow, I can do this really cool kind of setup, and it does a lot of threat removal or a lot of damage removal, or it's a utility type thing. And as the game is releasing more cards, goes into power creep, there's more different combos and different things out there to explore as we're building decks. And I think that's where a big fun for me part of the game is. And I will just say right off the bat, I am definitely not in the boat of D20 thinking that the old heroes are obsolete. And, as far as recommending goes, I probably would just tell someone like, who's your favorite hero? Obviously, yes, I understand if they say, Cable or Deadpool. Those heroes are not cookie cutter, simple heroes. So you could say maybe not picking them as someone brand new to the game, totally new. I probably would say the core heroes because they're easy to get into the game. But here's the thing: I would not say that like in the long term, even for someone with thousands and thousands of hours of playing, I still am amazed at certain builds you can do with the core heroes, and that changes maybe the so-called meta or whatnot. So I definitely don't think they're obsolete. But let's keep going.
So I think that the trend of Miles and Peter is very similar to the trend of X-23 and Quicksilver in that the new heroes are a lot stronger against scenarios that are easy, but against the tougher scenarios, they line up a lot more close to each other. Okay, let me see. And then I'm gonna skip the part. He also compares Venom to Peter Parker. I can't say too much as because I never played.
So I think the thing is D20 is making some good points. I'm not trying to downplay his argument, and Web Warrior is also making good points. But at the end of the day,
as they come up with more
let me just finish what I was going to say. At the end of the day, I think it's like you, the player, you watching this, you guys ultimately decide where you think. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel exactly the way D20 feels, and that's fine. You're not wrong or right, really. I mean, because you could make good cases for what D20 is saying. Or you could be in the camp with Web Warrior and you could be, 100% what he's saying. Or you could even pick me, which I don't know. I guess I'm agreeing with both of them a little bit, but I think I'm more agreeing with Web Warrior in this sort of argument or discussion. But let's keep going.
They're going to improve upon older heroes. I even think when you look at who was it? Cable with Cyclops. Now they're very, very different, but they each borrow from the whole idea of like pulling in any ally you want with Cyclops, right? Versus Cable's like any of the side schemes.
Yeah, so Cable is very, very powerful.
So they're kind of recycling the idea. It'll be interesting. And then that's
Cable is extremely powerful.
It'll be interesting to see if they really kind of like.
And that's why I kind of
Yeah, those are the ones that
got mad at some content creators for putting him so low on their tier list. I'm like, you guys do not understand the game.
Obviously, you guys know that Deadpool is very powerful, but at the same time, he has a lot of hard counters. I think that Ultron and Magneto, because of the concussive blast or the metal shards, they can easily wipe Deadpool.
Yeah, and I can also go a little further with what you're saying. In the Nemesis toolkit of Deadpool, if the Nemesis comes out, there's the boost ability. There's a boost ability card within the Nemesis that can basically make your text on your hero side invalid, basically. So basically, the villain's gearing up to attack you. That comes out on a boost. That attack kills you. You're dead. And then there's also an attachment that, again, blanks your text box as well. So Deadpool's not like, I know some people are like, oh, it's like broken the game. He can't die. I can't lose. You could also lose the scheme as well. But like, yes, without a doubt, Deadpool is very strong. He sort of breaks the traditional way of Marvel Champions itself. But honestly, thematically, that's 100% Deadpool. I mean, and so I'm actually, I give props to Caleb and Tony. If I don't know who designed it, honestly, I'm just whoever designed it. I'm glad they went with it, and I think that was the right move. If they would have did Deadpool like more in the safety of what normal heroes do, I don't think it really would have nailed the thematic part of that. Because Deadpool, if we're being honest, he breaks the fourth wall. He does things that are just, he's the only type of character that just is out there, and it's, and they needed to do something like that with him, and I think they totally nailed it. So,
and if Deadpool has to set up his board and try to survive, it makes it a lot more difficult for him because he can't trigger that, or you don't want to risk triggering the Regenerate Degenerate if you still know that there are metal shards or concussive blast in the encounter deck.
Ironheart actually is another, I think, decent one, but Ironheart feels different enough, which is kind of nice. So if you compare this to Iron Man, right, where Iron Man starts with one hand size, but he can get up to 7 with the tech upgrades, right? So there's kind of this build out process. So he has a similar feel to Ironheart, right, where they're both trying to build out, but yet it's different, right? There's enough difference here that, okay, Ironheart, you gotta get the 6 progress counters, which you can get different ways, but you get them, you can go up to the next Ironheart, right? You go up to the next Ironheart, and then you can do 2 more, and then, or 6 more to get up to Ironheart stage 3, and she's a beast when she's stage 3. This is an example to me where it feels like they did roughly the same exact thing, but it feels different enough, right? So that's why I wanted to show this as well. I don't want it to just be straight like.
Yeah, I like that point that D20 made.
Ironheart that makes Iron Man obsolete. That's
yeah, I think D20 is making a super duper good point here. Even though both Ironheart and Iron Man want to build out and like build their suit, they feel like completely different heroes. They both feel like they're building out their suit, right? Like thematically, but I mean, I think that the developers just did an amazing job making them feel not like each other at all. And I mean, Iron Man is still one of my favorite heroes to play.
It still is one of the big baddies of Marvel Champions.
But I do think it's kind of not a weird thing, but I think it's a thing worth kind of looking at and discussing. Is, are we getting to the point, especially in the more, especially when we start recommending this game to other people, are we getting to the point where we start not recommending older heroes as much, right? And I guess that's the bigger question to all of this.
Man, I will still recommend like the older heroes to this day. I mean, I've only played for about, I think like 8 months or something like that since last July. But I think that the core set heroes to this day are still one of the, I don't know, they're still the best heroes thematically
Okay, so I'm going to say this. Core heroes are more simple to understand how they are supposed to work, okay? And I think they're great for new players. You learn how to build out with Iron Man. You learn how to build out and kind of tactically use a certain event system with Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, but you have to build them out. Uh, Captain Denver's, Captain Marvel, more out of the gate, pretty strong and power type hero, but simple in that regard. Not as much building required with her, but she has a little bit. But she's more out of the gates, ready to go. Then you've got OG Spider-Man, more of a defensive kind of good control hero. He has his cancels, the stuns, the webbed up. And I think when you look at it's amazing to this day because I'm thinking, man, did they know what they were doing when they first came out with the core? There was so little cards for us to deck build. But yet they got the fundamentals, I think, far as playing Marvel Champions. You have, build out characters. You have like ready out of the gates, strong heroes that can kind of, their tempo does more for the team early on, like Captain Marvel, can draw cards for other players. Then you got more defensive heroes like, OG Spider-Man. And then, so I think what I would, I don't know who I'm agreeing with on this one, but it's like recommend the cores for new players because it's very simple to teach them how. Oh, you want to be a defensive type hero when you play with a team? Okay, pick OG Spider-Man. He's awesome. He can do this, this, and this, and this is how you want to kind of go about playing him. Compared to like Cable or compared to Drax, compared to Colossus, where you have these mechanisms that are part of the game, but those require a little bit of knowledge of like how the game works with toughs and counters and that. And not to say new players couldn't learn those heroes, it just would be probably a little bit more complicated for them or confusing or distracting is the word. Whereas the core heroes aren't very distracting. And here's the thing, when you get good with the game, you then learn to do some really cool deck building for those core heroes. And they're still amazing to this day. So my answer would be I recommend the core heroes. And no, I don't think they're obsolete.
Fun-wise. And their power is like still great, right? Like I think that the core set heroes match up to any wave in terms of power tier ranking. I think that
to this day, Iron Man stands the test of time for one of the best, if not the best, setup heroes in the game. I mean, I will argue anyone, like you have Iron Man completely set up. Tell me that he's not up there in like power as far as setup heroes goes. This guy's a beast. What he can do when he's fully Iron Man up, his huge hand size, his abilities in Alter Ego is still to this day one of the best. And it gets better with more cards like digging deep and stuff. Like you could do crazy shenanigans. And that's the beauty of this game, really. You can go back to the OG heroes, and because the player card pool is expanding, they're only getting better and better. And I've always said it days and days on in. I said, watch and see Hulk get better as we get more cards, guys. And Drax too. I said this. I know when people were kind of saying, "Oh, Drax is kind of like a slightly better version of Hulk, but he still feels kind of bad to play." They came out with the taunt card, and that kind of pulled Drax into insane shenanigans. Like Drax is like amazing with the taunt card and protection. So, where I still to this day think we're going to see Hulk kind of come out of nowhere with some of these newer cards that are being introduced. So yeah, we'll see if that fruition comes true or not, but let's keep going.
If you look at Captain Marvel's cards, she has some of the worst cards in the game, right? Just I think it's like 2 cost her Thor removal card. It's 2 cost Crisis Intervention, 2 cost for removing 2 threat from a scheme, and if you have Aerial, you can remove I think 2 more from another scheme or something like that. So that's just terrible. And then you need Aerial to get the full effect, which still isn't that good. And then she has her damaging card, the Photonic Blast. It's 3 costs for 5 damage, and you can draw a card. That's not very good because it's still, even though you're drawing that card, you're paying 3 up front. She has like some of the worst cards in her whole entire
But she has
in the whole
triple.
entire game in terms of a hero specific.
I think he's maybe a little too harsh on Captain Marvel. But I don't know if he says some good things after this. But she's a triple resource hero. She can put down an upgrade that then you can spend during the game to like power it up and do, I think it's like 10 damage or something like that. So it's like a Hulk smash basically, but it's an upgrade you can set it off when you want to, which is actually better than a Hulk smash, unless you need to overkill something. She can heal herself up in hero side and cycle a card, or draw a card if you use like a resource generator. Again, when she goes to altar, she can give a player on your team a card, and that could definitely help in a player counted game. So I understand he's trying to. There are some like he makes a good point about that 3-cost event that does like 5 damage in a card draw. When you compare it to maybe some of the newer heroes or other heroes in the game, that kind of falls off far as like the value. But then again, look at her as a whole hero. I think she's quite powerful. So again, it's a balancing mechanism, I believe, with maybe the developers, but I don't think they probably attended that as a balancing thing. But at the core days, I think they were really focused on the stat numbers. From what I was told by someone, that they had a graph and they would look at the graph, and that's how they would balance the game in the early days. I think the game has changed a lot where we are now. I don't think they necessarily pull that graph off every time they do like a card or ability. But I think in the early days, that was more apparent to them that they didn't want to, really make one card or one hero thing be like beyond powerful in the game. At least my perspective. Let's keep listening to Web Warrior.
Cards. But despite that, Captain Marvel is still one of the strongest heroes because of her draw power, because of her actual hero card. So, I think that she is so balanced in the game, even though she came out with the original core set. You guys know that I think that Spider-Man is still one of the strongest heroes. Iron Man is very powerful as well. And I do think that She-Hulk and Black Panther aren't as strong as the other 3. But they are still in the ranks of like a lot of the newer heroes that are coming out.
With the new rules for She-Hulk, so she has this upgrade that gives her like +2 attack. And when you attack, you would stun and lose that +2 attack upgrade. But with the new rules of 1.5, if the villain is stunned already, you do not lose that 2 attack. So I think She-Hulk definitely went really high into player groups or games where you're stunning the villain a lot, because then she's like getting a lot of mileage out of that +2 more attacks. She has a lot of readies in her kit as well. So she becomes this really powerful damage dealer, which if you saw my later video, I did a damage dealing tier ranking, and she's way up there in damage dealers, mainly because of that kind of new ruling with FFG.
Today, like I think that She-Hulk and Black Panther are still in the same ranks as like, I don't know, Ghost Spider, Cyclops. Like I think there's a lot of heroes nowadays.
And I think what they were doing originally, like I said a little bit earlier in my comments with them, when they made the core heroes, they had build out heroes, they had more defensive type control hero, like I was saying Spider-Man and Iron Man and Black Panther. And then you look at like She-Hulk, which is more catered to damage. So it's really cool how, and I don't know if they intended that, like they were just sitting around a table and like, let's make these heroes this way, this way, this way. But that's the way it came out. So, but it's cool to see, like, because when you play Marvel Champions a lot, you start seeing stuff like, oh, this hero is a build out hero, or this hero is out of the gates ready to go blazing type hero. At least that's when I look at Marvel Champions, that's sort of what I see. Like if you show me a preview of a hero that's coming our way, I'll quickly tell you, I think this hero is this type of hero just based on the identity kit that I see and the actions that they have on their hero or their altar side, how you might want to play them. But what's cool about Marvel Champions, ultimately, you as a player can decide how you want to play them. You could play Hulk and Justice and be a freaking thwarty machine in Justice with Hulk, even though his toolkit is kind of catered towards more of a damage approach. But that's the fun part of Marvel Champions, right? We play, we tinker, we test things out. That's, for me, that's kind of one of the exciting things about Marvel Champions is we have a plethora of heroes to explore. And deck building is almost like, as they release more cards, we have so many hours of deck building and trying different supports, upgrades, or player combinations, right? I'm going to team up with Black Widow with Iceman, right? We're going to go full on control. Nothing's going to get by us. So it's really cool.
That are, every single wave has strong heroes and weaker heroes. And I think that there's always a balance, and the core set fits perfectly in that. And the core set doesn't have the strongest heroes in the game, but it also doesn't have the weakest heroes in the game. I think that the core set's heroes are like right in the middle in terms of like where they average out, which is very, very good. And then they have very simple mechanics. That's my favorite thing about the core set, is that the mechanics are so simple.
The mechanics are simple, yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the
easy to understand. Easy to understand.
Their kits are more, I think D20 hits on this as well, that they're more fleshed out, but it feels like that. So some are different, right? Like I think X23 is a good example of a hero that's very, very fleshed out. Like there's a way that she wants to play with her readies.
Yeah, 100%.
But depending on what aspect you use to play with her, she feels entirely different. But for the core set heroes, a lot of them, the aspect completely changes entirely how you want to play them. And Peter Parker Spider-Man is one of the biggest examples of that, right? If you're playing him in protection,
unflappable, draw a card.
If you're playing him in Justice, where I like to play him, you want to flip like almost every turn. If you're playing him in leadership,
that's a good example
you
made.
A lot more high tempo. I think that, and same with if you're playing him in aggression, right? So,
and I agree with him, and I think that's why if you're a new player, start with the core heroes, because they are a more apparent when you're picking a Justice aspect. The core heroes are fairly simple as far as their design goes. Yes, they could be a build out character or a more aggressive character or a thwarter character, but the more simpler mechanism of that heroes is easier. Like when you choose aggression aspect, Justice aspect, you really get a sense of how that aspect is playing instead of playing Drax, right? Drax just wants to get punched in the face a few times and get upset and then start slamming everything that's out there, right? So that doesn't really feel very aspect-y. It's more like his own identity kind of kit. But let's keep going.
I think that, yeah, I mean, they just feel like the deck building can change more of the hero because they have such a simple bare bones kit. And for the newer heroes, it feels like a lot of times. And
there's more moving
I
parts in
can't
newer
speak on
heroes.
A lot of the heroes, right? But I know like
Deadpool, Cable, Domino.
That it doesn't matter what aspect you're playing her, because she's always going to be using her cards, and she's going to be kind of doing her thing with looking at the top of the encounter deck, or not the encounter deck, of the player deck, and manipulating it, and then milling cards and stuff like that. So I do feel like that a lot of the new heroes are more catered in how you want to play, and the direction is a little bit more clear. But at the same time, I love that simpleness from the core set heroes, because I feel like it gives more diversity. And obviously, this is kind of a blanket statement, where I do think that a lot of the core set heroes, you do kind of want to play a certain way. Like Black Panther wants you to get those upgrades out to play his Wakanda Forevers, but you can kind of go against it a little bit. And then a lot of the newer heroes, like I think Cable,
uses Retaliate,
play him in,
build the Porcupine Black Panther deck.
That's example, because Cable still wants to get player sizes no matter what aspect you play with him. It's just that if you play him in
Hi Canadian Mustache, good to see you.
Leadership, it does feel different, even though he still wants to get that. He still wants to primarily get those sites in a victory display.
A lot of times on the Reddit or on the Discord or wherever, a lot of times what we see is like, hey, I just got into this game. What hero should I get into? And people say, get the ones you're most interested in, whatever, whatever. But I do think there is something to be said that a lot of the newer heroes take some of the stuff the older heroes did and do it better, or at least different, or more efficient. And this isn't always the case. Again, I want to make a blanket statement.
So I would say this, because this is a very interesting thing he brought up, right? So I guess the question is, to my people that watch me, Descry, what's your stance on this? Are you, so D20 is saying the newer heroes seem to be just better made, or better power level overall, or compared to the older heroes. Where do you stand, Descry? Is he right on that? So it's a hard thing to kind of say yes or no, or like, I guess I'm a politician on this one. I agree with him that obviously there is way more maybe moving parts on these newer heroes, and you could say the power creep for these new heroes seem to have a longer reach than maybe the cores do. I could go with that. When you look at Deadpool, Cable, I mean, you can't tell me the cores can't do what those heroes do, right? Spider-Ham, stuff like that. But nothing for nothing, the cores might surprise you. Like I said, the thing is with different upgrades and supports being released, different events, different mechanisms, like we had Team Alliance, maybe we'll get something different. We're getting sidekicks now. That does change the OGs, right? The OGs have some really good signature allies. So I'm telling you guys, cards that they release can really supercharge older heroes. Likewise, maybe even the new heroes. But it is a difficult question. I'm not trying to dodge it. Part of me does agree with D20, but there's part of me that disagrees sort of what he's saying as well. I don't know if that makes any sense, but let me just finish what he has to say, and then maybe I'll elaborate a little bit more on what I'm trying to say.
All new heroes are better than old heroes. That's not the case. But I do feel like when we recommend this game to new people, like I get caught in this weird spot of, well, do I recommend the old ones because thematically they're fun, right? It's thematically fun to play as Spider-Man, like the original OG Spider-Man. I still think Miles Morales is a better version of him. And maybe people just like Miles more than Peter Parker version, which is cool. Then, kill two birds with one stone there. But if you really want Peter Parker, well, it's kind of weird to be.
So I'll give you also an example. I know there's some people that like playing with Hulk. And, sometimes we think, well, to like playing a hero, they have to be good or they have to be fun and high win percentage and whatnot. The reason why I like playing with Hulk is, for me, he's so different than our heroes that are in the game, but different in a way of like harder than most heroes to get him working the way you want him to work. But here's the thing. He's got some really powerful things about Hulk himself. And the challenge is that, can I take someone like Hulk and deck build and get him to work really nice, like a sports car, like, revved up, ready to go. And to answer your question, I've done it with Hulk. I've come up with creative ways to make the Hulk engine work fairly well. And to me, that's such a rewarding experience because when you have all these naysayers like Hulk is trash, he can't do anything. And then when you go into a game and you're just like clobbering the villain, we did a playthrough quite a while ago where Hulk removed 14 threat in one turn, plus he did like 15 damage or something on a turn. Okay, so when you do stuff like that, people take notice. They're like, how the heck did Descry do that with Hulk? But again, it has a lot to do with deck building, piloting, getting him set up properly so that he can do plays like that. So Canadian Mustard says, in my opinion, Peter Spider-Man's kit is cracked. I don't know if that's a hot take. Yeah, I really like playing Hulk. Okay.
Like, well, I have to play Miles Morales then. And
I was so on board with him whenever he was saying that Peter Parker is super fun to play. Yeah, I mean, D20 is like one of the funniest guys ever. If you guys, I'm sure that everyone that's watching my channel is also watching D20, but if you aren't for any reason, definitely check him out. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. Just super.
We're plugging D20, even though D20's got 4 times the amount of subscribers than both of us combined.
it's the same with Iron Man and Ironheart. And some people may look at it as like, well, why would I get Ironheart? Because I already have Iron Man who works so well. And it's like, well, they do feel different, right? It does feel different. So I think this is just kind of again, open-ended question of how are you all approaching this? Or are you approaching it with, do you play the older heroes as much as the new ones, right? Kind of cult of the new stuff, because I'm guilty of it. I play a lot of new ones. They feel more refined. They feel better.
Yeah, I play the old ones.
More balanced, more well put together. I guess that's the right way to play it.
I sometimes don't want to play the new ones because I know they're going to take me a little more time to kind of understand and grasp them and get them like, for me to feel like I'm optimizing the way they should play. Whereas when I go to a familiar hero or an older hero, I feel very comfortable. Like I know how they work. I know what they should look like on the table when I'm playing them well. Compared to the new heroes I haven't touched, it's like, ugh, it's like, okay, I better do my homework. And because I don't want to look like, like when I do streams, I try to pride myself like I know what I'm doing in my games. So it's the worst feeling when you are doing a stream and you're reading every card and you're not sure, like, is my hero supposed to do that? That's, hopefully I don't have streams like that anymore, but yeah.
Play. Some of the old core set heroes, some of the old like first wave heroes, like they're fun. There's some good ones in there, but some that could be a little clunky, right? They aren't as efficient as some of the new ones are. So anyway, when people ask me, what should I buy next? I always struggle with this because it's like, well, it depends on what you want. So that's why, again, I'm leaving this open to you all. What do you all recommend? What do you all tell people? And do you think that...
I think I answered this question earlier when I was like chatting away, and maybe I'm too chatty, but I would obviously, for a new player, go to the core. Simple approach to how these heroes want to play. There's not a lot of moving parts, and I think it gets them into the game to focus more on aspects and how aspects work. But that being said, once you learn the game sort of inside and out, you can really go to town and deck build and explore these original heroes. And a lot of times they sometimes impressed me more than the newer heroes, because when you add certain cards that are released, it can change these core heroes quite a bit. But let's keep going.
We're going to keep seeing this. I mean, we're seeing this a little bit, it looks like, with Magic, and I haven't looked at Magic in a little while, but it is kind of playing on.
So Magic is kind of a different...
Magic is
I
very
think
sexy.
that Magic might possibly be one of the strongest heroes in the game, if not like taking over Doctor Strange. I'm hoping she has some weak attack events, because if her attack events are limited in her kit, then I think that would potentially give her...
I'm going to main Magic. I'm just telling you right now, Magic is my main. When I play the campaign, nobody better touch Magic. I will kill you.
But I assume they'll keep pulling from older stuff to bring it into the new stuff. It just makes the most sense. But I want to know, I guess, one, is there any hero that's completely obsolete, you think, because there's a newer version of the hero? And, like, again, you might play them now and again, but generally speaking, the hero's kind of obsolete now. Do you go back and play the old heroes a lot, or do you kind of stick with the newer ones now because you like the refinement of it? And then finally, how do you handle the recommendation question, right? Do you kind of recommend
core heroes? End discussion.
Are you based off mechanics, or just kind of
You're a new player.
Aspect cards, which we've done series on aspect cards before.
Do not go to Deadpool or Drax.
So I think that if there is power creep in Marvel Champions, that would be through the aspect cards and like the basic cards that we've been given, right? But I think the really cool thing about that is that even though we've gotten newer aspect cards, and they're stronger than the older aspect cards, like Forge Justice is still very good, but like, I don't know, then like Surveillance Team or something like that. Even though we've gotten stronger cards, the older heroes can still use those cards. That's the coolest thing about Marvel Champions, is that the hero kit itself, you can deck build with any of the newer cards. So as newer cards come out, a lot of the core set heroes become even stronger as well. So I think that is a very, very cool thing, and that's not necessarily indicative of power creep towards the heroes. You could make the argument that it's a power creep with the aspect cards, but even with that,
yeah, I 100% agree. Canadian Mustache. Good point.
And Nick Fury is an ally that came in the core set. And then Avengers
Nick
Mansion,
freaking
Fury.
Fury.
A lot of people don't like Avengers Mansion as much anymore, but that's still one of my favorite cards.
Standard 2 don't like
decks,
Avengers Mansion, I can tell you that.
Including Avengers Mansion in my deck. Not just for like the early game, right?
That mansion gets burnt down real quick.
It's only good if you get out early. I think that it's good during any part of the game because you're getting a +1 hand size. So getting that one extra card might be the big factor of whether you can play an extra card that has
Blue.
extra resource or extra option.
Yeah, I hear you.
That can change a game. Like,
that's a good recommendation.
And prevent you from losing.
Captain Marvel, yeah, I think it's pretty solid.
Final big push, whether it's early game or late game. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that there is that much power creep. Let's listen to.
Hey, this is who you should buy based on the aspect card. Maybe that's a route to go as well. So anyway, those are my open thoughts. Let me know that in the comments. Really quick before you leave, if you haven't checked out my Patreon channel, go down below, click on Patreon, go check it out.
D20 needs.
You guys should definitely check out the Patreon if you haven't already.
I just think it's hilarious. Like, he's so plugging D20 right now.
Said something earlier.
It's a really big game. Are you based off of mechanics, or just kind of give them all the information, or do you do by aspect cards?
I'm gonna plug Web Warrior.
Oh, how you?
Everyone, go subscribe to Web Warrior.
I don't think this is this topic isn't as interesting to me like how you
Link in
recommend
the
the
description,
game, then
D20 Web
definitely
Warrior,
would
if
be
you guys
fun.
are interested.
But
I'm sure everybody that
just
goes to my
in
channel
opinion,
know
when I
these
recommend the game to new players,
people.
I just pick by whatever hero that whoever I'm recommending likes, right? So, if
So I think
someone
things are
loves
wrapping up.
Spider-Man,
Let's
they like
see
Spider-Man first.
if Web
They
Warrior
like
has
Thor,
any more
I
things to
just feel like they
say.
play Thor first. I think a lot of the it's hard because a
Be
lot of these story heroes
interesting
are so
if
simple, so they're a
D20
little easier
even
to
mentions
play.
Web Warrior
But I'd say like new
or
heroes
me,
because
probably not me, but
they're more
if he
focused,
mentions
they're
us
easier
in
to
a
play also in
response
that
of a
way, in
response
that
of a
you're not
response.
trying to decide what you want to do. So for players for newer players, I mean, that know what they want to do, I think the older heroes are more fun, and you can make those quick decisions anyways because you already know what you're gonna do. But for newer players that aren't used to card games and aren't sure like should I do this or that and are just kind of a little bit more indecisive, I love Marvel Champs. I think it's the greatest game, and I always talk about how the core set heroes are so relevant. I do want to give a shout out to Brant from Step in the Portal and Orest Gamba. I'm sorry if I messed up your name, but I've talked to these guys before about why.
Okay,
Marvel
so that
Champs-
looks like the outro there. Let's go back. Yeah, so we're back in action here. And let's kind of just conclude everything. So I really like this topic, and I'll just be honest. I got off work, I was kind of tired, and then I see this. I'm subscribed to Web Warrior, and I see an alert because I'm always like, I love his stuff. Oh, hey, Kevin, Human Centipede of YouTube content. And I was like, he's responding about power creep, and I'm also super interested in power creep for this game. And so I was like, man, this is a response video I would love to do. And what better to respond to not only D20, but also him as well. I think Web Warrior is up and coming content creator for the game. And I think he's going to be up there with the rest of the bunch, the successful over 1K content creation channels. But I think this is a very interesting topic. And it's a topic that I think we're all going to have different feelings on. But at the end of the day, I think it's, we all love the game. We all play the game. And I think stuff like this, which keeps the game interesting, right? When we can, after how many years now that the game's been out, we can literally at this point in time have a big discussion about, original heroes and power creep and, the new heroes that are getting made. Are they just so much better than the old heroes? And it just shows you, like, if the game was a very simple kind of board type game or card game, we wouldn't really have these discussions, guys. It's only because that the game is well designed and that we're, kind of having this. Web Warrior Fanatics is a solid creator. Got to put together a fund to get him the tokens, right? And it's really cool to see Web Warrior. He's definitely on track to be a big channel for Marvel Champions. And I can only imagine, like, once he gets himself set up for live plays, gets some better equipment, a play mat, it's only going to make people want to get involved with his stuff even more. That being said, really cool discussion. I don't know if you guys have any questions about it, because I know there's a few of you guys sort of in the chat here. He does a great job of slowly walking through interactions. Great stuff for new players. Yeah. You know what? He kind of reminds me kind of like Dale. So he has that sort of flow of he's really good at his content is very on point. And like Dale the Casual Gamer, a lot of all his content is like the quality and his mannerisms to approaching the game are very easy to understand and clear. And he sort of has that feel when you watch his games. Like he explains every card real quick. And the difference with Dale was actually pretty good at the game. It's too bad Dale doesn't do any more Marvel Champions, but he did some serious, I know people always say, oh, Descry, you play on harder difficulties. There's a few games that Dale did, like Expert, I think Ronin. He did Expert this, Expert that. So nothing for nothing. Dale was a little bit hardcore there at the end days of Marvel Champions before he sort of kind of stopped. Do you agree with me about how good Peter's kit is, or am I insane? Yeah, I mean, I think OG Peter is a really good defense control type hero in the game. Again, when I do those like tier lists for specialization, you're going to see him in certain tier lists that I do 100%. But yeah, this is an interesting discussion. I encourage people also to comment. Not only, I want you guys to comment on his video, also comment over here as well. And let's just see where this goes. Maybe D20 will bring up part 2 of this discussion, or maybe he'll invite us on his channel to like talk about it. Who knows? But I just want to, I was not even going to do a power creep talk, but the fact that Web Warrior had some really good insights, D20 had some good insights. Here's the thing. I didn't even know D20 made a Web Warrior video, or sorry, a power creep video. Built-in treachery cancels, backflip, swing web cake, Aunt May are really good cards. Yes, 100%, really good cards. What else do I want to say before I say goodbye to everybody? So the moral of the story is, I think it's a great time to get into Marvel Champions. I think it's never too late. If you're a new player, it does look very daunting, and I think that was the main question: is where do you recommend for a new player that wants to get into this game? Like, it's kind of scary when you look how many box sets and heroes are. The truth is, the core box will get you there. Just buy the core box, play it. And if you like the thematic feel of Spider-Man, if you like the thematic feel of Iron Man, you're going to love the game. You're going to love the content. And then go crazy. Start buying the heroes you like. Start buying the villain sets you want to get. And then enjoy the game. So there you go. That's sort of my take on it. I don't believe for one second that the old heroes are, should retire, dust off their uniforms and throw them out. They're still, if not neck and neck with some of the top heroes we have in the game, in my opinion. And again, these are just my opinions. But there's different videos we can go into more in depth about, talk about this hero and compare this hero. But I did make a good point during the early part of this video. I talked about, Marvel Champions is not just a cookie cutter game. Like, you can do a rush strategy, you could build out, you can control the villain. You can go for all these different kind of strategies in the game to try to get your W. And I think that's where it does get a little confusing when we start talking about, well, this hero can do this and this hero, because when you say go to multiplayer, well, you have a team of different heroes that do things very well. So you might need someone like OG Spider-Man Peter Parker to defend and exhaust with 3 defense, draw a card from being attacked, cancel a treachery that might kill your teammate, and then web up the villain to stop 2 more attacks on your other teammates. So there's definitely a hero for every situation, and I think it boils down to, how do you want to play the game of Marvel Champions? Do you want to be like Miles Morales and kind of hide and stun the villain and confuse the villain and bounce back and forth and do kind of things like that? So I think there's a play style for everybody in this game. But yeah, for new players, they don't really know what that is, and I think that's where the core heroes are going to help them make that decision, because the core heroes are more simpler approach to how the heroes kind of work. And simple meaning, build out, more all-arounder, stuff like that. So that is my take, guys. I don't know if I did a great job in this video. Maybe I didn't. Let me know if you think I talked too much, or I was off topic. Let me know. Again, this is all in fun. I don't do a ton of the response videos anymore, but they were, when I were doing response videos, they did seem to get a lot of likes, and you guys were kind of interested in my point of view. Basically, response videos are just, in what it means. It's basically content creation on Marvel Champions out there on YouTube. If I find it interesting, or I'll pick that content creator or video and just kind of listen to what they have to say and make my own response to it. And sometimes I end up agreeing almost about everything, and sometimes not so much. This was a little bit different because I had two other people giving different point of views. I think in this type of video, I definitely was leaning more to Web Warrior, but it's probably because of my play style and how I interpret the game than compared to D20. So anyways, hope you guys like this. I'm going to sign off, and you guys have a great night.